Hey, Dustin Tibbetts here, financial advisor with Jazz Wealth Managers. How you doing today? Today I'm talking about those of you that are around 50 or maybe a little over 50. I want to talk about the recession, right? Because you guys are old enough to have lived through the great sort of recession of 2008, 9, and so on. And you weren't really in retirement sort of lifestyle at the moment, but now you are. And that likely is stuck in your head. You remember how painful that was. And so I want to talk about a few things here today to try to help you out. The first thing I want to talk about is the actual recession probability. So if we look at the screen here, here is the current Fed recession probability for a likely recession in September 2020. This is a Fed-produced number. It's currently sitting at 29.04%. And you go, that's not that big of a deal. Maybe I shouldn't have to worry. However, if we zoom out, that is actually quite high. So here is the recession probabilities going back through all of the last recessions that I can pull up here. And you can see that when we do peak around 40%, a recession is right around the corner. At least the last time it peaked up there and so on and the time before. So it's a rather high number relative to itself, but it doesn't sound high as far as 29% goes. Here's the thing. If we get into a recession, that could change the way you save for retirement. Your income could be cut. I'm not trying to scare you here. I'm trying to get you to think and prepare ahead of time. So I want to break this down into a few categories here so that we can sort of prepare ahead of time. Even if the recession doesn't happen until 2021, you are of an age where you're going to live through another recession. So we just want to plan for it. The what if scenario, you know, the really far out sort of world is going to end people where they, collect the rice and things and have bunkers and everything. We don't have to go that far, but let's just prepare for what we're going to do and at least have a game plan it doesn't have to be official. It could just be in the back of your head. What's the game plan here for the recession? So I want to start with topic number one, which is going to be your investments and your dough. I want you to look at that together here, okay? I want you to take a look at your investments and make sure they're dialed in. I don't mean, I have this fund and I've had it for 25 years and it's going to be great. I want to make sure that you have your investments dialed in for your goal. Risk-wise, volatility-wise, because you know what's going to happen. There's going to be talk of recession. The recession may come, and all of a sudden, you're going to think that what you have is not as good as it should be. So we want to prepare for that ahead of time. And what I want to share with you is kind of the overall volatility of your investments. I want you to take a look at your investments in the same way, or have your advisor, whoever you're working with, do the same for you. On the screen, you've got in the gold here, the S&P 500, and what I did is I put up our moderate fund. It is not an aggressive fund. It's not conservative. The goal is to be a smoother sort of portfolio. This would be more ideal for somebody who's over the age of 50, getting closer to retirement or considering retirement. And what I really just want to point out, I'm not like bragging or trying to show, our own funds or anything. What I want you to look at is the lines. Just simply take our name off of it. Just look at the lines. With the gold being the S&P and the purple being our moderate fund, do you see how it's not as volatile? In the most elementary way, do you see how when the markets pull back a little bit, so does our fund, of course, but it doesn't pull back as hard. It doesn't have these hard drops. It also doesn't have very volatile day-to-day price movements. If you're getting over 50 years of age, you may not need to take all the risk that you want to take, right? Or that people tell you should take. You may need something a little smoother. It means you're going to sacrifice a little bit in returns. So if you're close to your goal in terms of investments or what you're trying to put away, maybe it's better that we slow down a little bit and do that. As far as your dough, what I want you to take a look at is your savings and your debts. If you're not quite to what you hope to have in retirement, well, then it very well could be that you have to pay down debts and invest at the same time. A lot of people say don't invest when you have debts, but if you're over the age of 50, you may not have that comfort, because if you wait too long to invest too much, well, now maybe your income's going down because you're starting to retire a little bit, and it gets harder to save a good amount of money there. So I want you to take a look at those debts. You may have to come up with a plan that says, I'm going to put some money towards those debts, and it may take me a little bit more. It may cost me a touch bit more to pay off those debts a little bit later, but I also need to invest no matter what the market does so that I have enough for my retirement. When we hit recessions, your income could change, right? Think you're all of a sudden paying extra towards your debts may not be something you can do, right? Who knows what type of jobs you're in, and things like that. So I want you to take a look at your investments and your dough. I could probably go on and on about this, but let's move on here. Number two, a lot of people use their property and they think my real estate will be sold at some point in the future. I'll get the cash from that. That'll help fund my retirement. Depending on where you're at, you may want to consider making that downsize adjustment now. Does it make sense for you to take the equity in your property and move on and downsize, look for something else, rent for a while, These are all general suggestions. I'm not saying everybody should do this, but if that's a big chunk of your potential retirement savings, what happens if real estate gets soft, the markets get weak, interest rates are still low, but nobody wants to buy because they're worried about their jobs? It may make sense to sort of sell on the way up, if I may, and make that tough choice now. That is not a choice for everybody. It's something you just want to sit down and take a look at. Does that make sense or not? So that's number two. You want to look at where you're living. How does your living situation change if you enter a recession? Do you still have enough time for a recovery so that you can sell that property? You don't want to get stuck. Remember 2008, I had a lot of retired people. They got stuck. They couldn't sell their property, but they needed that money, and that's a terrible position to be in. Number three, I want you to think about your income. What happens to your income if we enter a recession? Are you in a very cyclical type area of employment? Are you in construction, things like that? Or are you in healthcare, where healthcare is more stable and your income really won't change much? Your benefits usually don't change much. But I want you to just play devil's advocate here. Just look and see, what does your income look like? If you feel like your income is going to change, can you get a part-time job? Is that normal? Like if you look back through the last recession, is it normal for that sort of thing to happen with people? And if so, what does that look like dollar-wise? What adjustments would you have to make? Look, again, I don't mean to scare you. I'm not trying to make this one of those type of videos, but just in the back of your head, just a little bit of thought on what your income looks like if we truly do sort of melt down and everybody gets scared again and we head into a recession. Finally, number four, I want to give you your benefits. What do your benefits look like in a recession? What do your benefits look like now? It's kind of popular out there where people will say, okay, when we near recessions, I will go with a lower deductible plan, because if I have a high deductible health insurance plan, I might not have the extra cash to pay for that. God forbid I get sick during a recession, whereas now maybe you have enough cash to pay that high deductible. What happens in a recession? Do you have an HSA and that's going to be your backup? Should you change to a lower deductible plan, pay a little bit more now so that you don't have the chance of getting wiped out? This also boils back to emergency funds, HSAs, and things like that. Do you have that ability? The worst thing you can do, and this happens all the time, people get a little bit in trouble financially. It always seems to happen when the market is falling. They go, I don't have an emergency fund. I got sick. I don't have an HSA. I don't have any kind of help here. I got this high deductible medical bill I have to pay. And where do they go? They got to go to their 401k, take money out of that at the worst possible time, because they're selling investments to raise that cash to take out. Well, if you're selling on the way down, you're really it's a double whammy, both getting money taken out, paying penalties, and also selling at a lower price. So I want you to take a look at that. Does it make sense to change before any potential downturn there, okay? Finally, I want you to talk to your advisor, talk to your planner, talk to the company that you're working with your retirement. If you don't know how your retirement is invested, have a conversation, right? And this is the most important thing, and then I'll leave you out here. If you are talking with a financial planner and they go, yes, Mr. Smith, this is where you're at, for better or for worse, we're going to ride it out. You have to make sure that you're comfortable with that. Just because they tell you this is what we're going to do, you got to understand what's going on, and you have to be comfortable with that. Don't just let somebody say, you'll be fine, don't worry. Ask questions, dig in a little bit, make sure you get the answers that you're looking for, because at the end of the day, whoever that advisor is doesn't have to sit through the market falling with you, unless they're invested as well, but they're not in the same shoes as you, right? Your situation is much different. You're closer to retirement. Maybe you're trying to retire early. I don't know. But you definitely want to make sure you are on the same page as that plan. And by all means here, if there's one thing that sticks out that you're not sure of, ask them, right? Make them teach you. Your advisor should be teaching you, not just telling you. Make sure you get that from them. If they won't help you, then we'll help you here at Jazz. And I appreciate you guys watching, paying attention with us here today. Again, not to scare you, but just to prepare. I always want to play defense ahead of time. It's easier to tell you what to do than to tell you, I told you so. I don't like when people do that. So I'm happy to help. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you later at the closing beat. That's at 5 o'clock today on our YouTube channel, Jazz Wealth Managers. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Why should you choose Jazz Wealth as your retirement or long-term investing service? Our portfolios are managed by us, not some faceless mutual fund manager. Our private classes will teach you everything about investing and getting your dough straight. Best of all, our fiduciary standard means your best interest comes before ours.